Ever feel like the price tag on something is more of a riddle than reality?
Oh, definitely. Like, why does that thing cost that much? It seems totally arbitrary sometimes.
Exactly. So today we're grabbing our, metaphorical shovels. We're doing a deep dive into the fascinating world of pricing.
And we're using insights from the book Confessions of the Pricing Man by Hermann Simon.
Right. Think of this as your quick start guide. We want to uncover those hidden forces behind prices and, how they actually affect us every single day.
Yeah, and it's not just about the dollars and cents, is it? That's what's so interesting. It's how pricing messes with our minds, our perceptions.
Our gut feelings even.
Totally. We're aiming to pull out some genuinely useful ideas from Simon's work, stuff you can use, like, right away.
Whether you're just choosing coffee brands or maybe thinking about value in your own job.
Exactly.
Simon actually kicks things off with a story that's, well, it's pretty funny, but also a good warning.
Oh, yeah. Got that.
He talks about buying this used farm machine for what seemed like a steal.
Okay. I sense a but coming.
You got it. It constantly broke down for 2 years.
Oh, no. The cheap option ended up being super expensive in time and frustration.
Precisely. It's like that old saying, le prix s'oublie, la qualité reste.
The price is forgotten, the quality remains. A classic.
So keeping that cautionary tale in mind, let's dive into the strange psychology behind prices.
Okay, let's unpack that. Strained psychology. Because price isn't just a number, is it? It's whispering, sometimes shouting, things at our brains.
Like what?
Well, take the prestige effect. Simon uses Ferrari as an example. For stuff like that, the super high price isn't a bug, it's a feature.
It signals exclusivity, status.
Right. And get this. Sometimes if they lower the price too much on luxury goods, demand can actually drop.
Because it's not exclusive anymore.
Exactly. It's that weird upward sloping demand curve. It messes with basic economics,
It's like the ultimate velvet rope. If
Yeah.
everyone can get in, it's not the cool club anymore.
Precisely. And then there's how we use price as a shortcut for quality.
Oh yeah, we've all done that. Staring at a shelf thinking, well, the expensive one must be better.
It's such a common mental heuristic, right? Especially if we don't know much about the product or we don't buy it often.
Like picking a wine you've never heard of.
Exactly. Simon points out this happens most when we're uncertain, when the absolute price difference isn't massive, maybe when it's hard to compare options easily or we're just in a rush.
That covers a lot of shopping trips.
It does, and it ties into this idea many of us have that the price just reflects the seller's costs plus a bit of profit, that cost plus thinking.
Okay, and what about those mental shortcuts? Like price anchors.
Ah, yes, anchoring is huge. That first price you see can totally warp your perception of what's reasonable afterward.
The classic was $200, now $100 sign.
Exactly. Your brain locks onto the $200, and suddenly $100 feels like an incredible bargain.
Even if it was maybe never really worth $200 to begin with.
Precisely. And related to this is the magic of the middle.
The magic of the middle. What's that?
Simon uses this great padlock example. Imagine you see 3 padlocks, a really cheap, flimsy one, a super expensive, heavy-duty one, and one priced in the middle.
Okay.
Most people, if they don't have strong feelings or expertise, will kind of gravitate towards that middle one.
Assuming it's like the safe, reasonable choice.
Yeah, not too cheap, not too expensive. It's a powerful tool for sellers, actually. How you set up your price tiers can subtly nudge people.
Just got to be careful not to have like a crazy expensive anchor that just scares everyone away.
Right, exactly. You need plausible anchors.
Okay, now, the big one. Prices ending in 9.
Or
The $9.99 effect. Does it really work? Does it feel that much cheaper than $10?
It's funny, we're all so conditioned to think it does, but Simon points out the actual research on this general price threshold idea is, well, it's surprisingly mixed.
Really? Not a slam dunk.
Not always. Sometimes it seems to work, maybe signals a sale or a discount. Other times, not much difference.
Oh.
But what Simon did find logical is that if your goal is specifically to stay just under a psychological barrier, like $10,
The $9.99 gets you closer to that line than $9.09 would.
exactly. If you want to maximize revenue while staying under $10, $9.99 makes more sense than $9.95 or 99 cents. It's about that specific threshold.
Okay, wow. This is making me question every price tag I see now.
It's designed to. All right, let's shift to something called prospect theory. Sounds technical, but trust me, it explains a lot about how we react to prices.
Okay, lay it on me. Prospect theory.
So the core idea is loss aversion. Basically, the pain of losing something feels way stronger than the pleasure of gaining something of equal value.
Losing $100 hurts more than finding $100 feels good.
Exactly. Now, apply that to pricing. Paying money feels like a loss, right? Getting the product or service is the gain.
Ah, okay. So that loss aversion makes paying inherently a bit painful.
Precisely. And it explains weird things like the endowment effect.
Endowment effect.
Simon mentions this experiment. They gave some people a free coffee mug, then they asked them how much they'd sell it for. They asked other people who didn't get a mug how much they'd pay for one. The people who owned the mug suddenly valued it much higher than the people who were just looking to buy one.
Just because they possessed it for a few minutes.
Yep. Ownership makes things feel more valuable to us. We're more averse to the loss of giving it up.
That totally explains. I remember booking this business class flight, felt totally worth it for a long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Then the airline offered a pretty decent cash voucher to downgrade to economy. Suddenly, that fancy seat didn't seem quite so essential.
Haha, exactly. The prospect of gaining that cash back felt stronger than the pain of losing the upgrade you'd already mentally owned. Loss aversion in action.
Wow.
Okay. And this taps into why sometimes paying with actual cash feels different.
Like more painful than swiping a card.
Yeah. Handing over physical bills creates a more tangible sense of loss for some people. It can actually help control spending, weirdly enough.
And what about those cash back offers? Like on cars. You spend $30,000 and they offer $500 cash back.
Right. It feels like a bonus, a gain, even though logically it's just a discount off the total price.
But psychologically, it separates the pain of the big payment from this little feeling of gain.
Exactly. Prospect theory again. Simon also briefly mentions mental accounting.
Which is like, we put money into different mental buckets.
Yeah. Like we have a going out budget, a groceries budget, a vacation fund, and we're more or less price sensitive depending on which bucket the money's coming from.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
And he touches on neuropricing, like brain scans.
Just briefly, some studies apparently show that seeing a high price can literally activate pain centers in the brain.
Whoa, paying actually hurts.
It seems like it might on a neural level. But Simon is careful to say this research is still pretty early days for practical use.
Right, so we shouldn't overthink it. These are tendencies, not ironclad rules dictating everything we do.
Exactly. Fundamental economics still matters. But understanding these psychological quirks helps us see why we react to prices the way we do, and maybe make smarter choices.
Okay, so our brains are definitely weird about money and prices. Got it. Now let's switch gears. How do companies actually use this stuff strategically? Going high, going low? What are the plays?
Right. This is where we see clear strategies emerge, and understanding them helps decode why some businesses operate the way they do. Let's start with success using low prices.
Okay, who does this well?
Simon points to obvious examples like Aldi, IKEA.
H&M, Zara in fashion, Ryanair in flights, Dell originally.
Exactly. And what's the common thread? It's an absolutely relentless focus on efficiency and cost reduction.
Like obsessive.
Pretty much. Aldi has super efficient logistics, limited selection, fast turnover. IKEA designs products for cheap manufacturing and makes you build it yourself.
Ryanair strips out everything, charges for extras. Dell cut out the retailers.
Right. So the lesson is, if you want to compete purely on low price and win long term, you have to build your entire operation around extreme cost consciousness. It's not just about occasional discounts.
Okay, and what about even lower, like ultra low prices?
Yeah, Simon talks about this mainly in emerging markets. Think the Dacia Logan car, the Tata Nano, the Honda Wave motorbike in Asia.
These are like radically simplified products.
Totally. Designed from the ground up for affordability and basic function. Often involves local production, really understanding local needs. The key phrase Simon uses is simple yet robust.
And he suggests these might even start appearing more in developed countries.
Yeah, that's an interesting point he makes. As cost pressures rise everywhere, some of these ultra-low-cost concepts could migrate.
Okay, fascinating. Now let's flip it. What about winning with high prices? It can't just be about charging more, right?
Definitely not. Simon is clear. A high price doesn't automatically mean high profit. You still have to manage costs and sell enough volume.
So what's the key?
He breaks it down a bit. First, there's premium pricing. This isn't luxury necessarily, but charging significantly more than the average. The magic ingredient here is creating significantly higher perceived value.
Like Apple with the iPhone.
Classic example. It wasn't just the tech. It was the brand, the design, the user experience, the whole ecosystem. People perceived it as being worth much more. Samsung has done similar things.
Okay, who else fits this premium model?
Simon mentions Gillette razors' constant innovation, perceived superiority, Miele appliances known for durability, that forever better motto,
Yeah.
even Porsche.
Porsche. Aren't they luxury?
Well, yes, but he uses the example of how they priced the Cayman coupe higher than the Boxster convertible, even though convertibles often cost more to make.
Why?
Because they understood their customers perceived the coupe as offering more value, perhaps performance or status, and were willing to pay more for it. It's about understanding what your customer values.
So premium is about justifying the higher price with tangible or intangible value. Better quality, design, brand, service.
Exactly. But, and this is crucial, if that perceived value isn't there or it fades, the premium strategy can collapse really fast.
Now, what about true luxury goods pricing, the really expensive stuff?
Here, the price itself becomes a fundamental part of the appeal. It's about signaling exclusivity status. This is the Veblen effect we touched on earlier.
So the high price is the point, in a way.
In large part, yes. Simon uses luxury watches, an average watch, maybe under $100, but a high-end Patek Philippe or a Lange & Söhne can be hundreds of thousands, even millions.
And presumably they sell far fewer of those.
Oh, absolutely. There's often an inverse relationship between price and volume in true luxury. Think LVMH, Richemont, these groups manage portfolios of luxury brands.
What are the challenges for luxury brands that just keep hiking prices?
It's trickier than that. They have to fiercely protect their brand image and maintain that aura of exclusivity. Too much volume, too many discounts, or a dip in perceived quality can kill a luxury brand. There are limits to price increases. People still need to feel they're getting enduring value, craftsmanship, heritage.
So it requires careful management, strong storytelling, controlled distribution.
All of that. Success factors include heritage, craftsmanship, exclusivity, and telling a powerful story.
Okay, so we have low, ultra-low premium luxury. Is there one strategy that's like the best?
Simon's take is pretty clear. None of them are easy. You can succeed or fail spectacularly with any of them.
Depends on the market.
Exactly. Who are you trying to reach? The super price sensitive, the middle market balancing value and cost, affluent customers demanding the best, or maybe serving the specific needs of ultra-low price segments?
But does he see any trends in success rates?
He does note, statistically speaking, that fewer companies manage to sustain long-term success purely on a low-price strategy compared to those using premium strategy.
And luxury is even rarer.
Right. Luxury is potentially highly profitable for the winners, but it's a much smaller, more difficult club to get into and stay in.
That gives a really clear picture of the strategic landscape. Now, things are always changing, especially how we pay for things. What are some of the big innovations in pricing Simon highlights?
Yeah, this area is moving fast. A huge one is the radical increase in price transparency.
The internet effect. Comparison sites, apps.
Totally. Expedia, Kayak for travel. Apps you can use right in the store to scan a barcode and check prices online. It makes it much harder for companies to charge wildly different prices in different locations.
And it makes us consumers much more aware, more powerful in a way. Cross-price elasticity, as economists call it.
Exactly. Then there's the rise of pay-per-use models.
Like paying for miles driven instead of buying tires.
That's the Michelin example Simon uses for trucks. Instead of buying tires up front, fleets pay based on the performance delivered, per kilometer or mile.
That seems like a win-win sometimes. Costs align with usage for the buyer.
And the seller can potentially capture more value, especially from heavy users, by pricing the value delivered rather than just the physical product.
Interesting. What else?
We're seeing new price metrics emerge. Instead of selling light bulbs, maybe selling light per hour, or charging for transportation per kilometer.
Shifting what you actually charge for.
Right. And sometimes it involves introducing a completely new price parameter. Simon mentions the Sanifair toilet system in Germany.
Oh yeah, where you pay like 70 cents but get a 50-cent voucher back.
Exactly. It reframes the payment. It's less a fee, more like a deposit you can use in the motorway service area. Clever psychology.
It really is. What about things like subscriptions?
Definitely. Models like Amazon Prime, a flat fee for a bundle of benefits, are huge. And freemium.
Free basic service, pay for premium features.
Yeah. Think Skype, Spotify's free tier, LinkedIn's basic version. It works well for experience goods, things you need to try to appreciate.
A key is getting enough free users to convert to paying ones, right?
Absolutely. Conversion rate and the lifetime value of those premium users are critical metrics. Simon's firm actually found optimizing freemium models often leads to significant revenue increases, like around 20%.
Though he also notes some strong brands might just stick with charging up front.
Yeah, like established magazines or newspapers with strong reputations might not need freemium as much. Then there are flat rates.
All-you-can-eat data plans, gym memberships.
Internet, cable TV, Transport passes like the Bahncard 100 in Germany, museum passes, all-inclusive resorts. It's a fixed price for unlimited use over a period.
Great for heavy users.
Can be, but risky for the seller if usage goes way beyond expectations. It's a form of price differentiation, really.
Okay, what else is shaking things up?
Prepaid systems are common. Mobile top-ups, Starbucks cards.
You mentioned Starbucks makes money off unused balances.
Apparently so. It's like free money for them when cards aren't fully redeemed. Simon also briefly touches on customer-driven pricing, like pay what you want.
That sounds risky.
He generally advises against it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Relies too much on goodwill. He's much keener on profit-oriented incentive systems for sales teams.
Rewarding profit, not just volume or revenue.
Exactly. To discourage excessive discounting just to hit a volume target.
Makes sense.
Then there are things like intelligent surcharges, adding fees for specific extra services like airline baggage fees or hotel executive lounge access.
Or even tipping, in a way.
He mentions tipping. Yeah, especially how default options on payment systems, like in NYC taxis, can heavily influence the amount. But he also warns that introducing new surcharges, even small ones, can feel psychologically worse to customers than just having a slightly higher bundled price.
Interesting. And the opposite. A la carte pricing, unbundling.
Right, like iTunes breaking albums into single tracks. It gives customers choice, but can also reduce overall spending if they only buy the hits. Needs careful handling. Now, of course, streaming services like Spotify offer a flat rate again.
It's like a pendulum swinging back and forth.
A bit, yeah. And finally, auctions. An ancient method, but still very relevant and growing in use online, in procurement, government contracts, etc.
Wow. Okay. That's a huge range of ways companies are thinking about price beyond just sticking a label on something.
Yeah.
Now, what about when things get tough? Economic downturns, crises, pricing in crises.
This is super important. First, what's a crisis in this context? Basically, anything hitting your price, volume, or costs negatively.
Okay, so sales are down, costs are up. What's the typical gut reaction?
Often, it's to cut prices to try and maintain sales volume.
But Simon advises against that.
Generally, yes. From a pure profit standpoint, he argues it's usually better to accept some volume decline rather than slash prices across the board.
Why? Because it's hard to raise them again later.
Exactly. Price cuts often lead to lower margins that become the new normal and are incredibly difficult to recover. Sales teams feel pressure to discount, especially if fixed costs are high, but it can be a dangerous path.
So if cuts are necessary,
Make them intelligent cuts. Targeted, temporary, maybe for specific customer segments or to clear inventory rather than a blanket reduction.
and are there alternatives to cutting price?
Yes. He suggests offering cash or goods instead. Maybe extended payment terms or adding extra value or services for the same price. Things that don't directly erode your headline price.
Trying to stay off the customer's radar screen with price changes.
Sometimes, yes. If you have to increase prices due to rising costs during a crisis, doing it gradually or through less visible means might be necessary, though transparency is also valued. He also flags overcapacity in an industry as a major accelerant of price pressure in downturns.
Too many companies chasing too few customers.
Leads straight to aggressive pricing.
Which brings us to price wars.
The nightmare scenario, as you said, Simon calls price the atomic bomb of competition.
Use it carelessly, and everyone gets vaporized.
Pretty much. Price wars are incredibly destructive to industry profits.
What usually triggers them?
Several things. That overcapacity issue. One company trying to gain market share very aggressively, maybe through cost-cutting, misjudging how competitors will react, setting unrealistic market share goals.
New entrants coming in with super low prices.
That too. Or even just companies having very different cost structures leading to different pricing philosophies. You see it often in commodities, some industrial goods, retail, airlines.
So how do you prevent getting dragged into one?
Avoid overly aggressive moves yourself. Set realistic targets. Focus on differentiating your product or service based on value, not just price. Try to signal your intentions clearly, like if you do cut a price, make it clear it's temporary and why.
He uses GM as a cautionary tale again here, right?
Yeah, their relentless pursuit of a specific market share percentage led to deep discounting, price wars, and eventually contributed to their bankruptcy. A stark warning.
So it's about strategic patience, focusing on value, and not letting short-term panic drive destructive pricing. Okay, finally, let's bring it to the top. What's the role of the CEO, of top management and all this? It sounds way too important to be just like a marketing department issue.
Absolutely critical. Simon argues pricing has to be a top management strategic priority.
He quotes Warren Buffett, doesn't he?
Yes, Buffett's famous line, "Pricing power is the single most important decision in evaluating a business."
Yet, the research Simon cites found only about a third of managers feel their companies actually have strong pricing power.
Right. But interestingly, that perceived power is much higher in companies where top management is actively involved and where there are dedicated pricing teams or functions.
So leadership involvement makes a real difference.
It seems so. Salman also knows how prices are sort of creeping into everything now, areas that used to be free, like airline boarding fees, visa waiver fees like the US ESTA, congestion charges, even concierge doctors.
The world is becoming increasingly priced.
And in that world, Simon argues the only sensible long-term goal for pricing is profit maximization. That aligns with shareholder value and market capitalization.
But managers often focus more on cutting costs or boosting sales volume, right?
Exactly. He points out this common imbalance. Cost-cutting and volume growth get huge attention, while price, arguably the most powerful profit lever, often gets less strategic focus.
He has an example of a bank exec.
Yeah, focused on profit, but terrified of losing even a single customer due to price, which illustrates the dilemma. But the math is powerful. Even a small price increase, say 2%, can boost profits by a much larger percentage if volume holds steady.
And conversely, chasing market share with discounts can kill profits.
Right, the GM employee pricing example again. Huge volume boost, disastrous for profitability.
So why is pricing often neglected at the top?
Part of it is complexity. Pricing decisions touch sales, marketing, finance, production. There's often no single owner.
It falls between the cracks.
It can. That's why Simon stresses the need for clear pricing processes, guiding principles, especially if you have many products. Someone needs to own the overall strategy.
And he uses JCPenney as another warning.
A huge one. Their attempt at a radical new, fair and square, everyday low pricing strategy backfired massively. Customers fled, the stock plummeted, and the CEO was fired. It shows how getting pricing fundamentally wrong at a strategic level can be catastrophic.
So should CEO bonuses be tied to pricing?
Simon advises against tying incentives directly to specific pricing actions, as that can lead to distortions. Better to tie them to overall shareholder value or profit. But he does suggest CEOs track relative prices, how their company's prices stack up against key competitors, as a crucial indicator of their market position.
Okay, so the buck really stops at the top.
Ultimately, yes. He concludes that successful pricing is driven by top management. He points to the hidden champions, those often lesser-known German companies that are world market leaders in niche areas.
What's their pricing like?
They typically command prices 10–15% above the market average and achieve higher returns because they deliver superior value and manage their pricing strategically, led from the top. He even cites leaders like Jack Welch and Jeff Immelt at GE as CEOs who really prioritize pricing.
Wow, this has been incredibly insightful. A real deep dive, true to the name.
We covered a lot of ground. From the weird ways our brains react to numbers,
To the big strategic plays companies make, the new ways we're paying for things.
how to handle tough times, price wars, and why the boss really needs to care about pricing.
And hopefully, for everyone listening, this isn't just abstract theory.
No, not at all. You can see this stuff playing out everywhere, every day. Understanding it makes you a savvier consumer, definitely.
And maybe gives you some powerful ideas if you're involved in setting prices or defining value in your own work.
Absolutely.
So here's a thought to leave you with. Thinking about everything we've discussed, what's one pricing strategy you've noticed recently that makes a bit more sense now? Or maybe, is there one aspect of your own buying habits you might look at differently after this?
Good question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world according to the Pricing Man.